My name is Jacob, but everyone calls me Jake. I'm 38, and I live in Denver, Colorado. My story isn't an explosion, it's a slow collapse, stretched out over years. Like rust eating away at a house's frame while you live inside, confident in its strength. I'm going to write a lot and in detail because that's the only way to convey the full depth of this quiet catastrophe. All names are changed, but the events are not. This happened. I met Sarah in 2008. I was 23, she was 22. We'd both just graduated from university in Boulder. Me with a degree in computer science, her in environmental design. We literally bumped heads in the Trident coffee shop when I, glued to code on my laptop, was backing up with 2 lattes, and she was turning around with her cappuccino. Hot coffee spilled all over both our sweaters. Instead of arguing, we both burst out laughing. Her laugh was infectious, quiet, coming from deep within. She had freckles on her nose and intelligent, slightly sad eyes. We sat at a table together to wipe ourselves off with napkins, and the conversation didn't stop for 4 hours. We talked about everything. The absurdity of our first jobs, me a junior developer at a startup, her an assistant at a landscape design firm. Our love for the mountains, how we hated noisy clubs and preferred hiking. We discovered we'd both grown up in working-class families. My dad was a mechanic, hers a truck driver, and valued simple, honest things. There was no game, no flirting, no attempt to impress. It felt like I was talking to an old, long-lost, and suddenly rediscovered part of myself. My best friend, who, it turned out, was a woman. Our relationship developed with the same natural, unhurried speed at which trees grow. We dated for 3 years before moving in together. We lived in a tiny apartment in the Highland area, ate cheap pizza, watched old movies, and dreamed. We weren't just lovers, we were a team. She supported me when my startup was on the rocks. I brought her a thermos of hot soup to the office when she worked late on blueprints. We shared everything. Money, joys, fears. No secrets. No games. Complete trust. I proposed on top of Mount Bierstadt, which we'd climbed at dawn. There was no ring in the champagne or a giant sign. I just pulled a simple silver ring from my backpack, bought with savings from side jobs, and said, "Sarah, I can't imagine a single tomorrow without you by my side. Will you be my wife?" She cried, nodded, and we sat there, holding each other, for another 2 hours, watching the sun flood the valley with golden light. We got married in 2012. The wedding was in her aunt's backyard. Small, for the closest people. My mom baked the cake, her dad grilled steaks. We danced to music from an old vinyl record player. It was the happiest day of my life, not because it was a fairy tale, but because it was so us. Real, warm, without pretense. Everything that came after seemed like a logical continuation of that happiness. We saved. Instead of a honeymoon in Paris, we put all our money into a down payment for a house. Not a ready-built house, but a plot of land in the Littleton suburbs. Our shared dream was to build our own house. With our own hands. Me, the techie, was in charge of all the hardware, foundation, framing, electrical, plumbing. She, the artist and designer, was in charge of layout, light, colors, atmosphere. This became our grand project. Our saga. For the next 2 years, I worked 2 jobs. By day, a senior developer at an IT company. Evenings and all weekends, on the construction site. Sarah was always there. She wasn't afraid of dirt. She carried boards, mixed concrete, held the ladder while I ran wiring. Her fingers were always scratched and bruised, but she never complained. We argued until we were hoarse about outlet placement and roof pitch, but every argument ended in compromise and a joint decision. At night, exhausted to the point of numbness, we lay on a mattress in the only finished room, ate Chinese noodles from containers, and made plans. About a nursery. About a garden. About growing old in this house. It was the hardest, yet most meaningful period of our life together. We weren't building a house. We were building our future. Brick by brick. And each brick was cemented not just with mortar, but with shared labor, sweat, and laughter. In 2015, we moved in. The house smelled of fresh paint and wood. It wasn't perfect. A doorframe was a bit crooked here, paint uneven there. But they were our imperfections. Our history in the walls. We adored it, every corner. Sarah hung her sketches. I set up the smart home, her weakness for tech. We got a dog, a golden retriever named Dexter. Life, it seemed, had finally taken that desired shape. We had a home. We had love. We had friendship. We went hiking on weekends, invited friends for barbecues in the yard, sat by the fireplace I built myself in winter. We were those ideal neighbors, everyone says. Now that's a couple. Seems like they never fight. And we really almost never fought. Our disagreements were businesslike. Honey, I think we should invest in solar panels. It'll pay off in 5 years. Agreed, but we need to replace the old windows first, otherwise the efficiency will be low. Let's calculate. And we'd sit at the table, open Excel, and calculate. Found a solution. It was like that with everything. Our marriage seemed to me not a romantic comedy, but a well-written, intelligent drama series where the main characters respect and hear each other. I was convinced we had defeated the very nature of relationships, that we had found the formula. Best friends plus romantic partners equals an unshakable fortress. We kept putting off children. First, let's pay off more of the mortgage, we said. Then, first, I need to get promoted to team lead. Then, first, Sarah needs to gain more experience so she can go freelance later. Everything was logical, rational, reasonable. We were building our fortress so carefully that we didn't notice we were caring more about the walls than what was inside them. Around 2018, something began to change. Not sharply, almost imperceptibly, like the shift in the hue of light outside the window with the arrival of autumn. Sarah got a big, responsible position at a new, trendy architecture firm specializing in sustainable design. She was over the moon. I was happy for her. Her career had always been as important to me as mine. But with the promotion came a new rhythm. Late calls, work on weekends, business trips, first for a day or two, then for a week. New words, new names appeared in her vocabulary: brand, client presentation, strategy session. She started dressing differently. Her usual flannel shirts and jeans were replaced with elegant blazers, silk blouses, expensive designer sneakers. Dress code, sweetie, she'd say. When you're dealing with investors, you need to look the part. I didn't see a problem. I was proud of her. My Sarah, the girl with freckles from the coffee shop, was now negotiating with major developers. I tried to support her, cooked dinner when she was late, handled all the household chores, walked Dexter. I thought that's what support was, taking on the daily life so she had strength for the leap. But gradually, our synchronicity began to falter. We used to go to bed at the same time. Now she'd stay up late with her laptop in the living room, and I, tired after my own workday, fell asleep alone. We used to go to the farmer's market together on Saturdays. Now she was often too exhausted, or had a virtual meeting with the California office. Our joint hikes became a rare exception, not the rule. Instead, there were expensive dinners at restaurants, where she'd take me to celebrate a success. But at those dinners we often sat in silence, or she talked about work, and I, barely understanding the context, just nodded. I felt an invisible wall growing between us. Not hostile, just transparent but solid. We lived in the same house, slept in the same bed, but our worlds were diverging more and more. Her world was full of bright, ambitious, global things. My world, code, deadlines, our house, our garden, Dexter. My topics started seeming petty bourgeois, boring to her. Her topics, alien and somewhat empty to me. One evening, trying to reconnect, I asked her about the details of her new project, an eco-friendly residential complex. She started telling me, but after a minute, her gaze grew distant. "Oh, Jake, you're not interested in this. It's all bureaucracy and numbers." "I'm interested in what interests you," I said honestly. She sighed. "I'm just tired of thinking about it at home too. Let's just watch something." We sat down to watch a series. But I caught myself looking not at the screen, but at her profile. At the slight frown line of concentration between her brows that had appeared recently. At how she unconsciously fiddled with a new, thin silver ring on her right hand, a gift from colleagues for a successful project. I didn't recognize this gesture. She used to fiddle with our wedding ring. Physical intimacy became less frequent. Not because of refusal, but because the desire itself, that spontaneous spark, disappeared. Sex became another item on the to-do list for maintaining the relationship, like a joint trip to the movies. Predictable, infrequent, somewhat technical. I chalked it up to her fatigue, stress. I tried to talk about it, carefully. "Sarah, it seems we should spend more time on us." She'd look at me with tired eyes and pat my hand. "I know, sweetie." It's just such a crazy period right now. Once this project is over. But one project was replaced by another, even more complex and important one. I began to feel not like a husband but like a household manager. Successful, efficient but a manager. I provided the home front for her great battles. And at some point, it seemed she didn't even notice this home front. That our house, our garden, our coziness, were just a given, a backdrop, like the walls in her office. Something that just existed and had to function without glitches. A key moment, which I ignored, happened in the fall of 2020. The pandemic. Everyone went remote. Sarah and I were locked in our perfect house 24/7. It seemed like a chance to catch up. But the opposite happened. She lived in endless Zoom conferences in her office, I, in my meetings in the bedroom. We only crossed paths in the kitchen to quickly grab food. The silence in the house became hollow, broken only by our voices from behind closed doors and Dexter's barking. Once, I went into her office to ask about dinner. She was on a call, had headphones on, but I saw her face on the monitor. She was talking to someone, smiling that same old, carefree smile I hadn't seen from her in probably a year. Her eyes sparkled. She gestured. Then she laughed. That same laugh that once made my heart skip a beat. I quietly left. Someone in that virtual room had brought my wife's light back. And it wasn't me. Later, I asked who she was talking to so animatedly. She waved it off. Oh, that's Ethan, our new creative director from the Boston office. He's just an incredibly inspiring person. His ideas are amazing. She said it with an enthusiasm that stung me. Great, I grumbled and left. From that day, the name, Ethan, started appearing more and more often. Ethan thinks we should be bolder. Ethan gave an amazing analogy. Ethan jokes that this Ethan became a ghost in our house. Invisible but palpable competition. Competition not for her body, but for her mind, her attention, her admiration. For the very things that once belonged to me. I tried to take initiative. Booked a cabin in the mountains for a weekend, no internet. We need to be alone, like before, I said. She was happy at first, but then her face clouded. Oh, Jake, I can't. We have a critically important workshop with Ethan and the team on Saturday. He's flying in specially for it. Can't be rescheduled. I canceled the booking. Sat on the porch in the evening, looking at the stars. Dexter sat next to me, nudging my palm with his nose as if he understood. I patted his head and thought, when did I become so unimportant? The worst part was that we didn't fight. We were polite to each other. Like colleagues sharing an office. Pass the salt, please. Don't forget to take out the trash. Good morning. Good night. Our great friendship had degenerated into polite, detached coexistence. And I, fool that I was, still clung to the belief that it was just a rough patch, that we needed to wait it out, that love hasn't gone anywhere, it's just sleeping. I was afraid to lance this boil, afraid that starting a conversation would destroy even this fragile, formal world that was still somehow holding on. I preferred self-deception to confrontation. That was my fatal mistake. The breaking point came in January 2023. Sarah left for another business trip, this time to Boston for a whole week. Final project approvals with Ethan's team, she said, packing her suitcase. I helped silently, kissed her on the cheek goodbye. Have a good trip. Thanks. I'll call. She called rarely. Short, businesslike messages. All good, meeting ran late, good night. I sat in our quiet house, and the feeling of loneliness was so physical it pressed on my chest. I worked a lot, walked Dexter a lot, tried to keep busy. But my thoughts circled one thing. What was happening there, in Boston? What were those inspiring conversations with Ethan? On Friday, a day before her return, I decided to do a deep clean. Wanted to greet her with a clean, fresh-smelling house. Maybe it would bring back a drop of warmth. I vacuumed, mopped floors, dusted her office. On the top shelf of the bookcase, behind a stack of old architecture magazines, my hand bumped into something soft, leather. I pulled it out. It was a notebook, not an ordinary one. Expensive, dark blue soft leather with a metal clasp. I'd never seen it before. Curiosity is a terrible force. I knew I shouldn't. It was a violation of all boundaries. But something inside, that same cold fear that had been accumulating for months, made my fingers tremble as they undid the clasp. It was a diary. Her diary. I sat in her chair, and my heart pounded as if trying to escape my chest. The first pages were dated back to 2015, the time of building the house. Sweet, bright entries. Today Jake finished the roof frame. He was so happy, tanned, sweaty. I love him more than anything in the world. We argued about the bathroom tiles. But then made up, lying cuddled on the floor. This house will be our legacy. I read on. The entries became less frequent. There were notes about work, stress. Then, around 2020, the tone began to change. Words like loneliness, rut, like we're living by a script, appeared. And then he appeared. Ethan. The first mentions were professional. Ethan suggested a genius idea at the stand-up today. He has such a sharp mind. Then, coffee talk with Ethan lasted 2 hours. He seems to be the only one who truly understands what I'm talking about. Then, dreaming of a trip to Boston. To see the city where he lives. And finally, entries that made my blood run cold. Today's call with Ethan. We were talking about the project, then switched to personal stuff. He told me about his divorce. Spoke so honestly, so vulnerably. I told him about my feeling of stagnation. He listened, truly listened, not like Jake, who nods but his thoughts are already far away. After the call, I couldn't calm down for a long time. Like I was finally heard. He sent me a song. The one that was playing in the cafe on the day of our first in-person meeting in Chicago. He remembered. My heart clenched. Jake would never do something like that. For him, romance is buying my favorite sirniki for breakfast. It's cute, but predictable. And this, it's like an electric shock. We kissed. In the conference room, after everyone left. It was wrong. Terribly wrong. But, God, I haven't felt so alive in years. His touch, it wasn't familiar. It was new, greedy, like he was discovering me anew. I'm scared, but I can't stop. I turned the pages, and the world around me crumbled. Every line was a knife. She described their meetings, business dinners turning into long walks. Their secret trips, those very business trips. Their emotional connection, which, she wrote, was deeper and more meaningful than anything she'd had with me. She compared us, and I lost on all counts. I was reliable but boring, predictable, kind but not challenging. He was a storm, inspiration, the one who makes her feel. The most tortuous part wasn't the description of physical intimacy. The most tortuous part was the description of her inner world, which she had opened to him and hidden from me. All her fears that life was passing her by, her creative anguish, her thirst for recognition, she poured it all out to him. And told me, everything's fine, honey. In the last entry, dated the day before her trip to Boston, it said, flying tomorrow. A week with him. A whole week. I'm terrified and ecstatic. I don't know what will happen after. I know I'm causing Jake incredible pain. Sometimes I look at him when he's puttering in the garden or feeding Dexter, and my heart breaks from guilt. He's a good man, the best I know, but he is my past. My safe, cozy past. I'm afraid of Ethan, but with him, I am, the future. Something in me broke, and it can't be fixed. Forgive me, Jake, but I'm not the girl you loved anymore. And you, probably, aren't the guy anymore either. I closed the diary. My hands shook. There was a metallic taste in my mouth. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat in the complete silence of her office, in our house, and felt everything I believed in. Our friendship, our love, our shared endeavor, being torn apart from within. This wasn't just infidelity. This was betrayal squared. She not only betrayed me with her body and heart. She kept a chronicle of this betrayal, meticulously documenting how our ideal fellowship decayed and was replaced by something else. And I, blind fool, lived next to this time bomb and noticed nothing. I sat like that for probably an hour. Then carefully placed the diary back on the shelf, exactly in the same spot. Got up, finished cleaning, made dinner, operated on autopilot. My mind was empty, like a scorched field. Only one clear, cold thought remained. The game was over. Our marriage was dead. It didn't die today. It had been dying slowly, for a long time, and I refused to see the symptoms. And now it was time to declare the death and start sorting through the remains. Sarah returned on Saturday evening. She looked tired, but there was that unfamiliar sparkle in her eyes that I could now decipher. The sparkle of forbidden happiness, the adrenaline of a secret. How was it? I asked, taking her suitcase. My voice was flat as a concrete slab. Exhausting but productive, she said, taking off her coat. The project finally moved forward. Something smells good. Mushroom risotto. Your favorite. She smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Thanks. You're always so thoughtful. We sat down to dinner. The silence was hollow. She tried to talk about Boston, the weather, a museum she visited. I nodded, gave monosyllabic replies. I saw she was nervous. Did she sense the change in me? After dinner, as we drank tea on the living room couch, I couldn't take it anymore. Couldn't pretend any longer. Sarah, we need to talk, I said, looking not at her but at the flames in the fireplace I had built myself once. About what? Her voice sounded wary. About us. About what's happening. Or rather, about what has already happened. She fell silent. Then quietly. What do you mean? I mean Ethan, I said simply. And turned to look her in the eyes. Horror flashed in her eyes. Quickly replaced by anger. What? You with your suspicions again? I told you, we're just colleagues. He's my boss. I read your diary, Sarah. The effect was instantaneous, like an electric shock. She paled so much the freckles on her nose looked like scattered pepper. Her mouth fell open. She gasped for air. You what? You went through my private things? She exhaled. Her voice a mix of rage, fear, and shame. Yes, I did. And I found what I was looking for. Or rather, what I was afraid to find. 9 months, Sarah? 9 months you've been leading a double life? While I was here playing the perfect husband, feeding the dog, painting the fence? She lowered her head. Her shoulders trembled. At first, I thought it was tears. But when she raised her face, there were no tears. There was only emptiness and a strange relief. All right, she whispered. All right, you know. Now you know everything. Everything? My coldness began to crack. Bitterness crept into my voice. I know you think our life is predictable and boring. I know my romance is cheap Sirnicki to you. I know you kissed him in the conference room. You know what was the most hurtful? You wrote that here's you. When was the last time you tried to say something to me? Really? Not, Jake, pass the salt, but something important? You closed off, Sarah. You retreated into your tower of ambition and stress, and when you got lonely, you didn't call me. You called someone else. You didn't cheat because I'm a bad husband. You cheated because it was the easiest path. No need to work on us, repent, ask, change. Just jump into a new adventure. She listened without interrupting, then slowly shook her head. You're right. You're right about everything, Jake. It was the easiest path. And the meanest towards you. You didn't deserve this. You were always my rock. But a rock is cold, Jake. You can lean on it, but you can't get warm on it. Over the years, I started feeling like we weren't husband and wife, but ideal co-owners of a successful family enterprise called life. Everything on schedule, everything logical, everything safe. And with Ethan, it's irrational. It's stupid. It hurts. But it makes me feel. And yes, it's terribly selfish. I know. Do you love him? I asked, though I already knew the answer. She was silent for a long time. I don't know. I love what I feel with him. I love the version of myself I become with him. She's braver. She's freer. She's not Jake's wife who built a house. She's just Sarah. And who am I to you now? That was probably the most childish and most important question. You are my biggest pain, Jake. You are my conscience. You are my best friend, whom I betrayed. And I don't know if this can be fixed. I don't even know if I want to. Because to fix it, I'd have to become that Sarah again who was happy with Sirnicki and dog walks. And I don't think I can anymore. There was no malice in her words. No attempt to justify herself. Only bitter, naked truth. And this truth hurt even more than lies. Because lies can be exposed and defeated. Truth can only be accepted. Like a verdict. The conversation lasted all night. We didn't yell. We talked quietly, wearily, like two soldiers after a lost battle. We dissected our marriage, bone by bone. All the missed moments, all the unspoken grievances, all the compromises that had accumulated like plaque and killed the passion. We concluded that our great friendship had become a trap. We were so afraid of destroying it with conflict that we avoided any real, difficult conversations. We silenced dissatisfaction until it grew into a quiet hatred of the routine, and then, into a search for salvation elsewhere. By morning, the decision had matured on its own. It was inevitable, like sunrise. I can't stay with you, Sarah, I said. Even if you broke all ties with him right now and begged for a second chance. I couldn't. Every time I look at you, I'll see the lines from that diary. Every laugh of yours, every late return from work will be torture for me. Trust. It's not like a cup you can glue back together. It's like ashes. You can't gather them up again. She nodded, looking out the window at the beginning of dawn. I know. I'll leave. To my parents first. Then, we'll see. We'll have to sell the house. I know. Dexter. Keep him, she said quickly, and her voice trembled for the first time that night. He loves you more. And that's how it all ended. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. Like a song fading out. It's been almost a year. The house is sold. We split the proceeds 50-50. The divorce was finalized by mutual consent, no alimony. Clean, civilized, like liquidating a joint venture. The first months were the darkest. I lived in a state of deep dissociation. Went to work, completed tasks, interacted with people, but everything seemed unreal, like a badly made movie. I rented a small apartment. Dexter was my only salvation. He needed to be fed, walked, cared for. It kept me from falling into the void completely. I didn't follow Sarah on social media. Unfriended, blocked her, but mutual acquaintances sometimes broke through my information blockade. She moved to Boston, got a job at Ethan's firm. They lived together in a loft in the South End. In the photos, which I didn't seek out but were shown to me by chance, she looks different. Stylish, polished, with that sparkle in her eyes. Happy? I don't know, but definitely not the Sarah I knew. That Sarah stayed in the past, along with our house of wood and shared dreams. Sometimes, in the quietest moments, I catch myself missing not her, but the illusion. The feeling of absolute understanding and safety I had. Now I understand that feeling was a mutual delusion. We were too young and too afraid of loneliness to build something truly adult. We built a fortress against the world, but it turned out we had locked ourselves in it from each other. I started seeing a therapist. It helped. He said one important thing: you didn't lose. Your marriage fulfilled its function at that stage of your life. It gave you love, support, a home. But people change, and sometimes they change in different directions. Your only fault is that you, like many, mistook comfort for happiness and peace for love. And her fault is that instead of honestly saying, I'm unhappy, let's change something, she chose escape. And you are not responsible for her choice to escape. I'm slowly returning to life. Learning to be alone again. Sometimes it's hard, especially on Friday evenings when we used to plan weekends. But there are pluses too. I can eat whatever I want for dinner, watch whatever I want, without coordinating with anyone. I signed up for a welding course, always wanted to, but Sarah thought it was a dangerous and useless hobby. I bought an old pickup truck and tinker with it in the garage. It's my new, small project. No grand plans, no blueprints. Just doing something with my hands and getting simple, uncomplicated pleasure from it. Trust again? I don't know. For now, I'm learning to trust myself. My gut feelings. If something seems off, not to ignore it, not chalk it up to paranoia, but to ask questions. Directly and honestly. I've realized that relationships shouldn't have polite silence. Sometimes you need a healthy, loud conflict to break through the wall of misunderstanding. Silent agreement is poison. What have I taken away from this whole story? A few simple, bitter truths. Friendship in marriage is necessary but insufficient. Passion, attraction, romance. These are not options for the young. They are vital elements that need constant nurturing. Otherwise, you become siblings, and that's a dead end. Safety can be a trap. When you're 100% sure you won't be betrayed, you relax. You stop trying, surprising, conquering. You start taking your partner for granted. And it's easy to neglect something taken for granted. Talk, even if it hurts. By silencing problems, you don't solve them. You bury them like a landmine. And one day it will explode. If your partner is pulling away, don't take on even more household chores trying to earn their attention. That's a path to nowhere. You need not to shoulder more, but to sit down and ask, what's happening with us? Betrayal is always the choice of the one who betrays. No routine, boredom, or inattention justifies lies and infidelity. An adult talks about the problem or leaves. Doesn't lead a double life. I don't know if I'll meet someone else. I'm not ready now, but I'm not closing off either. I'm just living, one day at a time. Taking care of Dexter, brewing coffee in the morning, going to work, sometimes meeting friends. Life goes on. It's not as I planned. It's not as bright and paired as before. But it's real, without illusions. Without self-deception. And sometimes, early in the morning, when I go out for a walk with Dexter and see the first rays of sun on the Rocky Mountains, I feel not pain, but a quiet, strange gratitude. Gratitude for the good years we had. For the lesson that was cruel but necessary. And for the silence that now belongs only to me. There's freedom in it. Bitter, lonely, but freedom.